Do you think that his legacy could have been bigger if he just focused more on the music?
No, he has focused on music completely. He's still doing the same job that he was doing essentially when he was 19. I think there are other areas where he could have developed. He perhaps, like John Lennon, he had the potential to be a writer, possibly a politician, some sort of demagogue, youthful demagogue. But he has a very cautious nature. He doesn't, again, this is not what people think Mick Jagger's like. They think he's reckless, very, very cautious. He didn't want to risk himself too much in the cinema area. He was offered in the 1970s and 80s some fantastic film roles, which for some reason or other he never followed through. He could have had a tremendous career on the screen as well, on cinema screen.
Where does this cautious behavior come from?
Just nature. I mean, his father was a very straight and self-disciplined character who was a gym teacher in an English school in Kent. And a lot of his father is in Mick, and sort of, not wanting to take a risk. You think this is a man who's always taken risks, But really, a lot of the more sort of lurid episodes in his past happened by accident or bad luck, not because he wanted them to happen at all.
Mick and Keith, how would you describe their relationship?
I would say look at the play Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf by Edward Albee as an old married couple who are alternately screaming at each other and showing each other great affection. It's a bit like that. They're like an old married couple who know each other's faults inside out and who drive each other crazy, but are sort of shackled together for eternity.
But you could say that they could leave each other. Why haven't they left each other?
Well, they have come very near it several times, but they were friends when they were children, and in the end, old friends are the best friends, how annoying they are. But there was a serious bit of trouble over Keith's memoirs, life, partly because he got so much money for the book and it was so successful, and he made some unpleasant observations about Mick in the book.
What name you want?
Saying he was vain and shallow and all those things, and whatever happened to the friend I used to have. The worst thing, Mick thought the worst thing was Keith saying he used a voice coach, Mick used a voice coach, but there was this business of saying that Mick's, what Keith called his todger, was small. In fact, it's patently not true because there's a lot of film footage around of Mick with his todger on full view and it's not small. I can't understand why that went into Keith's book, really. It seemed very catty and small and stupid, but it's not the kind of thing you want your friend to say. And particularly at the end of the 1970s, when Keith was arrested in Canada and charged with drugs trafficking, they could very well have, the Stones could have split, the whole band could have split at that point. In the 1980s, when Mick was doing solo albums, Keith was very annoyed because Mick was doing solo tracks, but with another band that sounded like the Stones, and Keith was furious about that. But they seemed to make that quarrel up, so...
It looks like that if you look back at all the quarrels, that Keith actually, seems to need Mick more than Mick does need Keith.
I think it's more a question of they each have got something that they each has got something the other rather envies and admires secretly. I think Mick would love to be a kind of real rock and roll outlaw like Keith is. And Keith, in a way, rather likes Mick's social life, and rather like Lennon and McCartney were total opposites who worked as a partnership, and Jagger and Richards are like that.
And music-wise, how does a Stone song come about?
Well, it's come about in all sorts of different ways. But again, it's not like one writes the words and one writes the music. It's in the same way as Lennon and McCartney. They both could do words and they both could do music, but Mick tends to be more the verbal side. But it is an amazing partnership. I mean, no other songwriting partnership in any musical sphere has really lasted like this one.
Do they still write together?
Well, I think in this case, when the need arises, they will get together. It's not like someone sitting down and, in his bedroom and writing half of it and sending it to the other one. They come about in all sorts of ways, sometimes in the studio.
But are they still friends?
It goes beyond friendship, if you've known someone for all that time. It's irrelevant, really, being friends. They're there.
No, the thing is that if you have to believe everything that has been written now, that they don't speak to each other anymore, that they don't, they barely can stand each other in the same room. Is this true?
It has been true, but I think they tend to sort of make up again, just like a pair of old marrieds.